Welcome to the Mobile Economy Podcast. Eric Garrison along with special guest Becky Hanner, who's one of the partners of Moblz. Today we'll be talking about who Moblz is. So this is the All About Moblz episode of the Mobile Economy Podcast. Welcome to this week's episode of the Mobile Economy Podcast. Sitting with me today I have Becky Hanner of Commercial Asset Services. So welcome, Becky, and we're going to talk about where Moblz came from. So to start off, the background of Moblz was I'm one of the founders, and I have a partner in the business, Jeff, and it started a couple years ago. The way it started was that we had another company. Jeff and I are serial entrepreneurs. We have started a number of companies, worked together over 20 plus year time. We had started up a service company that worked with Uber drivers. And that was going okay, but I get a phone call from Jeff one day going, I think I might have an even better idea. He looked out the office building that he was in over on Perimeter Parkway in the Research Triangle Park area, and there was a spiffy truck doing an oil change. There's another car wash doing a service, and then up the block was a couple of food trucks. And the question came up, who is managing these? Who gives them permission? How do we know that this guy doing the car washes is licensed and everything? Which set off in my head because I had just a week or two before a incident where my SUV was parked and somebody was washing a car near it and blew soap all over my car, making my car all dirty. So it came about going, yeah, this is a great idea. We'll research into it. Probably 2 weeks later, we came up with research and said that, there is not a company that has created a way to manage this. So then we reached out to some property management groups that we knew. So Highwoods being one of the first ones we talked to, Tri Properties and Imperial Center being another one. So we talked to them. Wonderful person by the name of Robin locally. We ran it by and got her feedback, as she is somebody who works with tons of property managers and knows the property management space all up and down the East Coast and has worked with Jeff and leasing properties. So after running this by a couple of people, they go, this is a great idea. And what the genesis of this was what we call the Mobile Vendor Management System. That was a term we trademarked. It's a term that we came up with. And it's a platform that we built. Ideally, what it does is it helps manage the mobile vendors on a commercial property so that the property management groups know who is there. But we also wanted to take and look at the way that is being managed, which a lot of times back then was by whoever sits at the front desk at the property management group is who is in charge of booking the food trucks, keeping the Excel spreadsheet, reaching out, dealing with the cancellations, and then didn't do a very good job at notifying the occupants of the building when the food trucks and mobile vendors were coming so that they had enough business. So Spiffy was coming and doing one car wash, didn't make sense for them. The food trucks were only doing 10 tickets and they weren't all that happy. Yes, you had food trucks and you had that mobile amenity, but it wasn't flowing as well. So that's where we really looked at the business, and a big piece of that was the bringing on of Becky Hanner. So as we were getting ready to go into our beta market, which was the Imperial Center at Research Triangle Park, which is a big 3 million square foot office park with a number of buildings and lots of occupants pre-COVID, we knew that we needed to have somebody who understood the property management space. And that's where Becky came in and basically told Jeff and I, which was very truthful, that we were thinking about things very small and not quite right. That we were not thinking of all of the aspects of what goes into property management, which is why Becky is part of the company today and why we brought her in. So, Becky, tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure, absolutely. And I love your description. You described some great, the chaos of what happens in parking lots that property managers are not even aware of. As you know, I have been in property management or asset management, one or the other, my entire work career. And have managed every type of property from office, industrial, flex, retail, medical office, life science, have worked for small local developers, been an asset manager for a national REIT, most recently led the Cushman team from 500,000 square feet up to just shy of 14 million square feet. So I really grew that office, third party. So, in each one of, as you've learned over the time, every type of property management situation is different depending on who the ownership is and whether you're a third party company or whether you're an owner developer. I mean, everyone looks at things differently and manages them differently. But, over the years, with all the amount of mobile amenities that have come in and out of office parks, and other properties as well, but we're going to be using office parks as our typical scenario, I think, today. It's really chaos out in the parking lot. The property managers have no idea of who's coming in and out. You talked about two different types of, services, servicing cars out in the lot. The property managers probably didn't even know that anyone was out there. They didn't get certificates of insurance. And they're going to be, property ownership is going to be ultimately liable for anything that happens out in the parking lot. So I love the idea that you and Jeff initially, came up with, and to be a part of that's really exciting to help try to, meld that into something that's truly useful for the ownership and property managers, as well as making it very relevant and viable for the vendors that come on the property.
So this is a story I like to tell. It comes up every time we talk about this in front of groups like at the BOMA conferences, which was during our beta, the certificate of insurance we knew was a very key piece of this, and it became very true during the beta or roll up to it. We had our flagship property that was part of the beta, which is the Imperial Center, and we had everything printed. So we had cards printed, we had flyers printed, everything ready to go for these upcoming events. And wouldn't you know that hitting the local TV station and RAL was live video footage of one of the food trucks on fire right outside the owner of Imperial Center's office. His physical office is where the food trucks would park, up nice and close to the building, still within fire marshal range. They were not blocking the doors, but there was an electrical problem, and the food truck Spanglish caught on fire and made the local news. Mm-hmm. And definitely pointed out the key point that we need to definitely make sure that these trucks have the COIs, because that just becomes such a critical piece for property managers to be able to go to the owners and say, yes, if something like this happens, and it's not the only time that a food truck has caught fire. If you watch some other episodes or listen to the podcast, you'll hear Dominique and I talk about some of the fires that have happened on food trucks. And that's one of the reasons why we focus very heavily and make sure that the trucks have the COIs.
Yeah, that really does happen. And property managers are really good about getting COIs from their tenants and from their vendors that are working, that they have contracts with. But they don't have contracts with these people, with the vendors, with the service providers that are coming in and out of their property that they may or may not even know about. So they're not getting certificates of insurance from them. And as I mentioned earlier, that anything that happens on a property is ultimately the owner's responsibility. Everything. They're responsible for everything that happens. It's a horrible, potential liability. So it's great that through Moblz that is a way to be able to control that chaos of what's happening out in the parking lot, and not just control it, but embrace it and control it, and be able to, instead of having a free-for-all, state what you're going to be having at the property, having rules and regs for not just your building, but now your parking lot as well, which we help with. We put together some template of rules and regs, things that we recommend to be how things should be at a property. And of course, everyone is customized according to the property, because every property has its nuances.
And a lot of people don't realize that even things such as car washes can lead to fines to the property owner. Mm-hmm. It's not the car wash person that's going to get the fine. It's the property manager or the property owner that gets the bill from the county when something goes wrong.
Yeah, you can't have any of that water go down the storm drain.
Yeah.
Yeah, gotta reclaim all of it.
New regulations have really changed the space. It was fun when we were creating Moblz. We go around and we look for mobile food trucks and for different mobile services. And somewhere back in our archives was a photo of somebody doing an oil change where there were legs sticking out from underneath of the vehicle. And this was down in South Florida. That parking lot had to be, you could fry eggs in the asphalt, and this guy rolls up underneath the car and take it out. Mm-hmm. For the record, Spiffy does not put anybody underneath the car. They actually extract the oil from the top, and no oil is ever drained. It's extracted.
Yeah, they have a very cool way of doing that. They suck it out, it's very good.
Vacuum it out, and it's very clean. Mm-hmm. There's been oil spills, as in fryer oil spills, have happened on properties in the area. But it's also very fun to talk about many of the up and coming mobile amenities that we see coming onto the market space. We are very sad in a lot of Becky and I's marketing. We have had a vehicle that was in Western North Carolina, outside the Charlotte market. There was a mobile vape bus. That when we go through different mobile amenities, everybody wants the lobster truck. Spiffy oil change, 100%. Spiffy car wash, 100%. The lounge bus that you could sit in the lounge chairs and vape in somebody's parking lot. Universally, I think we had 50-50 on gasoline in the parking lot from property managers, but we had 100% of people who did not want the mobile vape buses on their properties.
I think some of the funniest things we've seen are like the vape bus, the wedding chapel.
Yes, the mobile wedding chapel. Yes. That's a good one. And by the way, that's here in North Carolina. That's not Las Vegas. It probably does very well in Las Vegas, but the mobile wedding chapel was...
As long as you have Elvis performing this.
Exactly. Mobile fuel in North Carolina has been problematic, although it's in some counties, it's in some areas.
But people love the whole concept. Think about how many times you've driven into the office on fumes, but you have to get to the office because you've got a meeting, and you don't know when you're going to be able to get to the gas station because you also have something else going on. Can you imagine how cool that is? Just be able to get someone to come to your office, fill up your tank, and while you're in your meeting, and you never miss a beat. I mean, it's all about convenience. You might have chiropractic service, or you might have massage service, or nails.
Definitely hair and nail.
Yeah, hair, that's right. Yep. And then you might have the mobile services. Of course, you've got dent repair, you've got windshield repair, all that sort of thing. You've got hobbies. You've got the
mobile golf club repair.
Yeah,
and bicycle repair. We have multiple bicycle repair companies. Yeah. And that's one that has been very popular, especially here with COVID, is everybody is more fitness focused, and they're wearing out their bikes, and since you can't go and buy a new one because there's none to be had, people are having to rehab the bike that they haven't ridden for 5 years.
Right. And then you think about, you mentioned fitness. That's another whole one. I mean, you can have your, yoga, or the YMCA has the Red Rover, and there's bands on these, there's trucks that have weight trucks, and they've got bands that you can work out right there at their truck. So there's just so many different categories of things that are mobile. Basically anything that was traditionally brick and mortar can potentially be a truck. And although each market that we serve throughout the Southeast has different trucks, different services, whatever they have today is going to be completely different than what they have 3 months from now or a year from now. I mean, it changes constantly. It's just fun to see it all grow. See what else comes up.
It is fun. It's also fun to see the pictures, and we'll put, there's probably a few of them rotating through this video as we're watching it here, of the various different type of vehicles. But the other areas we're seeing a lot of movement is what was traditionally go to an office for a service, like even lawyers. I'm really surprised. You don't see a lot of change in the law space. That was one that I was really surprised that COVID has had so much of a impact on, given that you now have these big RVs that are rolling mobile law firms with copiers and all of the technology that you would expect in it. What I like about that is it allows that law firm to now go into underserved areas, and I would bet down in our Florida market we're going to see a lot of those, because it's going to make much more sense to pull the mobile law office up to the clubhouse at Spanish Lakes or the Villages or these different retirement communities and service the clients there on the property versus having all those clients come into a high-priced office. So we are starting to see that where people are going for the services is maybe a 1 mile away, very small type of commute, which is exactly what we see with the food trucks. You're bringing the food closer to the consumers.
And it's all about food. Food brings people. And how exciting is it to have an event? Like if you're a property manager and you want to start, I mean, especially here, trying to get workers to come back to the office, you can have food and a lawyer, and
Right.
being able to promote that. Some of the really cool things we've done in the past, I mean, Valentine's Day events where we've had food, candy, jewelry, flowers, fruit.
Well, because it's COVID, we also had hand sanitizers. Yes.
Well, I was thinking first, but you're right.
Yes.
Yeah, we've done some cool stuff during COVID as well. But you
Yep.
mentioned COVID too, and some of the fun stuff, not fun stuff, but some of the most the events that have been really well attended and appreciated have been stick and stuffs. So you have
Yeah.
a blood mobile and a food truck. So you go give blood, community service, and you get some food at the same time. And that really does, even during COVID when there were not as many people in the offices, it was amazing how many people came in the office specifically for that.
Now, we'll give a plug, and we have to take a little pat on our back because I think that there's only been one blood drive that we have done that Moblz and one of our sister tech companies have been a part of that were under the number. We have had so many of the events that we have exceeded to the point where Blood Connections had to bring out a second truck, or one that we did was fixed base with mobile food event as well here in Orange County. I think we were at 134% of what the goal was, and one we approached 200%, which was fabulous. A lot of that has to do with the communication, the ability to do social media right, and that is one of the nice things about Moblz is food is a big piece of it.
Yeah.
It's so much easier to get people interested when you've got good food involved with it. So, one that we had to bring a second truck out, we cheated a little bit. We brought the lobster truck. So Cousin's Maine Lobster definitely helps get people convinced that they should give blood. So there were so many people that came out, even people who were not working in that building those days, drove to the office park to give blood and to experience Cousin's Maine Lobster.
Yeah, that's huge for building owners because
Yeah.
right now it's so important in the commercial real estate space for owners and for managers to help their tenants bring the building occupants back to the building. I mean, that is paramount. So many of the calls we've gotten recently, have been people, actually, I mentioned the Southeast earlier, but it's all over the country that people are really zeroed in, focused on this now because they see this summer people coming back to the office. They're going to be reoccupying, and what can they do to make it attractive for them to come back?
Right, and we fully know that the reoccupation is going to look a lot different. It's not that, I don't think anybody thinks it's going to go back to what it was, but I think that is, in talking to property managers, I think it's more exciting for what we do with Moblz because the interest in these type of food events and health days and everything are becoming more of a focus of people. They're like, we want to do this. Now, what we are seeing is that what was the biggest day for our food trucks was Friday. I'm going to guess that it's going to be a long time before Friday's our big day because I think more people are going to opt to work from home on Friday, and it may become that Wednesday is our biggest day.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Pre-COVID, the focus was really about sustainability. So the managers were really focused on what they could do to make their buildings operate more sustainably. And now it's shifted a little bit. Sustainability is important, but rather than LEED, it's all about WELL. So it's the WELL certification, anything that's health and fitness. And you can only do so much stuff in your building. Like, it's great. First of all, it's all about money. That's why people own buildings. They've got to make money on them, right? So you've got to have all that as leasable space. And if you have a lot of amenity space, you may or may not be able to charge rent for that through your load factor. And for the folks that don't know that, any area that's a common area of the building does get charged back to the tenants of the building. They pay their pro rata share of the common areas, but you can't just charge for tons of space. There's a cap. There's only so much you can charge for, which means the landlord doesn't get rent on that amount of space. So when you think about it, how do you drive more value to your buildings? You know, if you have a fixed base cafe, it's great, but people don't want the same menu every day. So
Right.
that's why they like to supplement with food trucks. Well, the same is true with all these other amenities as well.
Well, we're also seeing now, and if you're on a phone call with Becky or myself about Moblz, one of the first questions we ask is your green space.
Yeah.
You know, it used to be we would go through fixed space cafe, common space, picnic tables, you know, and things such as the fitness center. We'd ask, 10 minutes of discussion about the fitness center. From the employees right now, the fitness center is such a low priority. It used to be that we wouldn't leave talking to a property manager without the word Peloton coming up.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't heard the word Peloton in a year
No.
because the Peloton people have the Peloton at their house, or it's no longer at the office as they're trying to use it. They are definitely more interested in what is safe and doable outside. It's why also I think some of the things like the outdoor green space, and why clients like our Dillwig property that we work with down in Charlotte that put in so much outdoor space and did the murals and took that outdoor space that were
Great
big
office.
planting spaces. They were big planters full of plants that are now patios, and you can sit at one location, you can sit 100 people safely outside. Another
Yeah.
location, you can sit 25 out, and you've got these great unique murals and shade, and it was well thought out.
They're
what
very
they
visionary.
did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's important for people to understand why Moblz, why this works. And so I just want to make a point that traditionally, whenever property managers and their staff have put together an event, they would notify their main point of contact with each of the tenants to let that main point of contact tell all the employees that work for that company. And the problem with that is, let's just say it was the office manager as the main point of contact. The problem was that, well, they might have sent it out or maybe not, and
Right.
maybe they were there that day, maybe they weren't. I mean, more often than not, the message just didn't get out. And then the employees might get so many messages from the main point of contact, they might just delete it, or it might be buried in a bunch of other notifications
Right.
as well. So the word never got out to the employees. What amazes me is how many more contacts the building managers have now within their office community than they ever had before, because of the app and the
Right.
way the word gets out through social media and that sort of thing.
Yeah, social media is definitely playing a much bigger part, and it is one area that we've done well is the use of social media. Again, we get to lead with food and events and golf,
Food brings people.
and not please make sure you lock up your purse, please do this, please, it is a little easier to promote a food truck with deep fried Oreos than it is to promote that you need to make sure you use the umbrella covers when you come in the building and it's raining on social media. So that is something that I think a lot of property managers are having to look at how they're going to deal with coming back post-COVID, which is the promotion of different events.
So true, and how many employees have we heard that they will look at their app to see what's going to be on the property that day before they decide to go into work, because are they going to bring their lunch? Are they
Right.
going to try to make lunch plans with somebody else on the way into the office? Oh, there's a food truck there, great, done,
Yep.
And so a lot of managers, well, not a lot, but some managers do have a social media program that they run. And I will say that doesn't tend to really be very successful, because even at that, they're trying to make sure they get it in their day, and get these things out. They're not really just focused on it. And with your large technology company, you've
Right.
got people that just specialize in that. So that's what their job is, and they just make sure that the message really gets out in a
and
timely
we
manner.
do heavily utilize technology for that.
Mhm.
There may have been social media posts that have gone up while we're sitting here doing this broadcast that the person behind the camera is responsible for.
Yeah.
But it's not that she is in there manually doing these posts. Only when we're at events do we manually do post. Everything else is planned out, the calendar. and is preloaded up so it goes out automatically. Those emails that we send on Monday mornings, for example, of what food trucks and what menus are coming for the week, those are planned out a lot of times a year in advance, and the schedule will change. If a truck is swapped, that automatically goes in, and the new links for the menu are updated, and everything goes out. So it really saves a lot of time, which is something we've heard from multiple property managers. We had one that, what'd she say? She spent about 4 hours on Monday morning giving her food truck links and getting the menus out. And that was 4 hours that she got back times 52 weeks a year.
Paid for Moblz many times over. I mean, you're not paying near as much as what her salary was for the service. They
also had a food kiosk, so it wasn't just the food truck she was trying to keep up with. It was what deliveries were coming into the kiosk and the scheduling on that. Just having that automated definitely increased the amount of people eating at the food trucks, the use of the kiosk, and eliminated a lot of time spent by that property management support person.
And one of the cool things is the analytics, I think, too, because, whenever we have an event, we ask each of the people that come on the property, any of the service providers or food trucks, to give their sales reports, to give any feedback on whatever, they want to get feedback on. And so because of that, we've been really successful in actually being able to get some of the more desired trucks to the property that otherwise would not have been there. They're seeing their sales go up, so now all of a sudden these properties that were kind of hit and miss before, now they're like, oh, very desirable. I totally want to be there, because I always know I'm going to get great sales. So that really helps a lot too.
Thanks for watching the first half of the interview with Becky Hanner of Commercial Asset Services and myself about Moblz and the different services that we provide and why we provide them to property management groups. You'll want to watch episode number 2, which is here on the YouTube channel, so just look for it in the videos, and be sure to subscribe and like this video. Give us a thumbs up if you like it. Leave us a comment if you found any of this information informative. Thank you.